Retirement sparked something new for Bob Tenczar. He traded spreadsheets for service and found purpose in giving back. Bob has been on our board for over a decade, and he learned that all of his financial expertise and his experience had a place here at the Rose. He also had a deeply personal reason for being a part of the Rose. And when he learned that compassion carries as much value as any ledger, Bob made it a different kind of mission. Bob's story shows how one person can change lives, starting with their own. Bob discovered the power of purpose after retirement, and he is glad to tell anyone what it takes to change lives and how being a part of the Rose has changed his. Please share this episode with family and friends, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. We so appreciate you supporting the Rose's mission, and most of all, we want you to take care of yourself. Let's talk about your breast. A different kind of podcast presented to you by The Rose, a breast center of excellence and a Texas treasure. You're going to hear frank discussions about tough topics, and you're going to learn why knowing about your breast could save your life. So, Bob, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure.
And I want you to tell our listeners a little something about how you got involved with nonprofit anything, being a volunteer.
Right. Well, I realized too late that during my working career, I was just devoted to work and not to more giving and doing other things. And so late in my working career, I realized that, and I began to get involved with some church organizations and activities. But then the big hinge for me was retiring, okay? And so upon retirement, I had a lot of time coming available. I don't play golf, okay? And so I knew that I had certain talents and I had to keep busy, okay? And so volunteering was obviously one of the things that was out there for me to do. Mm-hmm. And so initially, I had been a supporter of the United Way. And so I raised my hand and said, I'm here to volunteer, United Way, take me. And they did. And I got involved with the biannual analysis of the agencies that submit their requests for United Way funding. And they assigned me to, of all places, the healthcare group of agencies. And so I went through that biannual process twice. It was very interesting as my introduction into more of the details of healthcare, because we would review submissions from San Jose Clinic, Legacy Healthcare, American Cancer Society, and others. Okay, and so that was great. Okay, and I got to do some work, but it was mostly analytical, looking at documents, raising questions. But then we actually visited locations as well. So that was the beginning of a nonprofit initiative for me. Mm-hmm. But a good friend of mine also had made the transition into nonprofits, and we had known each other back to the 70s, and she encouraged me to get more involved with nonprofit organizations, particularly being on boards. Okay, she said, I have a financial management background. She said, there are plenty of nonprofit agencies that would love to have you sitting on their board with your, talents. And so I took that as a goad and said, okay, you're right. Okay, I'll take a look at it. And so that pushed me to go to the United Way board fair. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it was at that first board fair that I saw a bunch of ladies gathered around the Rose table. Immediately, I knew I could embrace the mission of the Rose. Okay, I have personal reasons as to why that's true. And so I waited for all the ladies to get away from the table, and I was the only guy in the area. I walked up and I met you, Dorothy.
I know. I know.
And I said, do you have men on your board? And she said, oh, yes. And you said, oh, yes.
I don't think anybody's ever asked me, do you have men on your board,
Throughout the evening, your table was it seemed to be only the ladies were
Right.
interested. I was interested, and so and the good news is that you were interested. Once I explained who I was and what I was looking for, you were.
So you kind
open
of
to that.
glossed over that financial background. What exactly did you do?
Yeah, I
in
was-
your work life.
Yeah, a career in accounting and auditing, first in public accounting. Okay, but then I transitioned. When I realized that I didn't really want to stay in that business, I transitioned into corporate financial management, primarily industrial companies that manufactured stuff. Okay, and that was my world. Okay, and so it was a big leap for me ultimately to get into nonprofits, to get into organizations that were more service oriented, healthcare oriented. Right. So, but it was a wonderful career with lots of hours, worked, but with lots of successes. Bumps along the road, but there are bumps along the road with everything.
Right.
Okay, but
So the Rose wasn't your first nonprofit to be on the board?
it was. I joined the board of the Rose at the same time, from the same board fair with another nonprofit organization of Avance Houston, devoted to not to healthcare but to education. Right. Primarily focused on pre-K and family education for underserved communities. Avance is one of there's 4 big agencies that serve the greater Houston area for the federal Head Start program. Okay, and so that's their biggest activity.
So
but
both
there's
of your
others.
nonprofits had a mission focus on lower income, underserved communities.
Absolutely.
And that attracted you.
Yes, and even when I was doing the United Way volunteering, San Jose Clinic is another one. Legacy is another one. And so that theme seemed to dominate.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. So we really need to give a plug to the United Way Board Fair. I think that same year we recruited Laura, or the year after, and I know
Swin?
we've had Swin, we've had probably 6, 7 board members who have come from that job fair or that board fair.
Right.
So United Way really does a service with that. And we are not a United Way funded agency, but they open it up to all nonprofits.
Yep.
So we would really encourage that to any nonprofit. You'll find some of the best there.
Well, since I have rolled off of the board of Avance, I've used the board fair again, and so I do have another activity going on right now.
And that's with?
That's with the American Red Cross.
I'm just amazed at how much you do give to these nonprofits because it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, but I have the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it also takes, I know for us, the hours you spent reviewing our finances and our monthly stuff, and, it just takes a lot.
Well,
you were our treasurer for years.
Correct.
So this is not a small job.
Yeah. Well, just like everybody, everybody who works for the Rose, embraces the mission, is willing to work hard to accomplish the mission, and the same attitude, the same approach existed for me as a board member. I have the time, I have the abilities to do what I was doing, so let's do it.
So, Bob, you said you had a personal reason for wanting to be part of our mission, and what was that?
My mom was a breast cancer victim. She and our entire family were from a culture that you went to see a doctor when you were sick. You went to see the dentist when you had a cavity or a toothache. Okay, you didn't do any annual checkups, any teeth cleaning.
No.
You didn't do anything unless something was telling you had to.
Right.
And so as a result of that, my mom never, actually, 2025 marks the 50-year anniversary of when she died in 1975. And it was only in 1976 that the American Cancer Society began to make the statement for the first time that annual mammograms were a necessity. Right. Okay, and so it never came up as something that needed to be thought about for my mom. So,
and there wasn't screening before then, Bob.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a mammogram and you had it on a non-dedicated machine if someone found something.
Right.
It was truly just a diagnostic test. So that's so interesting, just thinking back how much has changed.
Well, I remember vividly the conversation she had with me in the spring of 1974, telling me that she had lumps and that she was going to go into the hospital for what she explained to me was a biopsy. Okay. What that turned into was a radical double mastectomy, okay, which was,
that she went in for.
She went into the hospital, but she came out,
And that was common standard procedure at that time.
Yeah.
Such a traumatic surgery,
Right.
To have no preparation.
Correct.
No.
It was a big surprise. None of us ever thought this was going to be the result of her, test. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was a shock. She came out, and over the months of that summer, I guess it became more and more evident that there was a bigger problem because the breast cancer had metastasized into her lymph system and was everywhere. Yeah. Okay, and so now
and she was young.
She was 52. Okay, and so during those summer months, I was in my first year of marriage. I had a townhouse being built. I was working in Miami, and she was up in the West Palm Beach area. We weren't seeing each other every day, and I was busy and enjoying my new life as in a new career. And so during those summer months when other treatments began, I was really sheltered from what was going on. It was only in the fall that the seriousness of what was going on with my mom hit home. Because I don't know whether it was probably at Thanksgiving, because I know I was visiting, the house that I grew up in, and I know my aunt and uncle who lived up not too far away from them were visiting as well. And while I was passing my mother's bedroom, she was talking to her sister, my Aunt Helen, and she was showing her the dress, and she said to Helen, "This is the dress I want to wear when I'm laid out." Oh. Boom! That was
Bob.
that was the big shock. Okay, just how serious this was.
Yeah.
Now she was. I moved into my new house in December. She was there to help me nest.
Right.
And to
your first home.
Into the first home. That was in December. Okay, but by February she was back in the hospital. The doctors were trying a lot of things. They did a splenectomy. They were anything where they could get rid of the cancer. They were trying, but she got smaller and smaller, weaker and weaker, and she passed in February. So that remembrance that I've carried with me for all these many years, that's why I knew with certainty that I could embrace the mission of the Rose.
Right. That had to be hard.
I was a young guy. Mm-hmm. Okay, I was in my early 20s, and so it was the first real suffering. Okay, you have sufferings in life. Okay, it was the first suffering, and so it was a life-changing event.
So I suspect, as you had children, you became a champion of having the screenings and all the things that...
Yeah, well, that's,
That's just a different lifetime, really.
That's correct. And I have to give all the credit to my wife, Nancy, who, while I was working all the time, was a wonderful mother in making sure that all the kids had their, had annual checkups, if not more frequently than that, okay, and making sure that we kept an eye on the health of our 3 kids. And I'm happy to say that my oldest daughter Laura has 2 kids, and I know that she shares with us every year the photo from the doctor's office from as to when they get their annual checkups. So all that new appreciation for being on top of your health, visiting the doctor to find out how you're doing, that melds perfectly into what you need to do with mammography.
So what have you learned since you've been a board member for 10 years or a little more than that.
Yep.
So what have you learned since you've been with us?
Well, I've learned that I've always known that in the world there's a lot of caring people. Okay. I've been very, very pleased with meeting so many of those caring people here at the Rose.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. And it's not only you and Dr. Dixie who saw a need and took action to address that need, to take care of a certain population that needed it. It infuses into the employees, particularly the navigators who have a special fondness for as to how they take by the hand patients and lead them through what can be a very complicated process.
Right.
Okay, but in addition to that, the caring also gets to all these ladies who come in here for their mammography that have insurance. Mm-hmm. Okay, now, yes, it's a good thing for themselves that they're doing it for themselves, but hopefully they know and can appreciate that by doing it at the Rose, they're caring for others. So that's another example. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the supporters of the Rose, particularly the larger funders who have provided the Rose with the capability of having the state-of-the-art technology that's necessary to do what's required, okay, as well as being able to expand with the mobile program. Mm-hmm. So just another example of that there are really a lot of people who care about others, okay, and that's, succinctly we're told to love God and to love neighbor. Loving the neighbor and family is all part of caring for others, and that's what I've learned happens here at the Rose.
And I'm always amazed because they're caring for people they'll never meet. They'll never know our community. They understand it could happen next door to them or to their own family, and it's really we really have a unique community around us in many ways.
Yep.
So now, do you realize I was going back through all the things, and you've been with us through hurricanes and shutdowns and
floods.
Oh, God, yes, floods, which between you and me, I'm so glad I wasn't in your house. Ours was nothing compared to yours. But you've also been through, I think you were here when we just launched our first, well, I think you came right after that, the portable mammograms. Do you remember the little ones we'd roll in? And then you got to see our coaches come in.
Right.
So in all these times, all these years, do you have a favorite moment that you remember?
Well, there's lots of wonderful moments, okay. I particularly embrace all the wonderful mission moments, testimonies that I've heard from people whose lives were saved, whose obligations to their family was saved because they went through the process of the Rose. And listening to these real-life stories is just a compendium of wonderful moments. I know that I'm most, in one of the aspects of being proud about what the Rose has accomplished is with the expansion of the mobile program, that during these 10 years, going up to 5 coaches and serving so many so many counties.
Yes.
It's wonderful. And one moment that I remember specifically was at the Brookwood community, where I was there when the coach was there serving the citizens of the Brookwood community, and seeing just how comfortable these ladies were, having their tests done right there where they live, versus them being uncomfortable about leaving their pretty sheltered environment
And safe
environment,
Yes.
and having to go to a facility, for the tests. So I saw the mobile coach in action. I saw it in action for a underserved community,
And a special needs
community, and so that was a real highlight.
Yeah, it was for our employees too. And Bob, you were instrumental in making that happen. So, you always leave that part off. But I will tell you, our techs came back in tears. They said if ever we had a day we knew where we needed to be, it was that day. And it was just so rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah, such good work.
Well, and when I think about the scope now of the mobile program, knowing that so many people can't get to, from their lives of working, where they're at, transportation, them getting to where they need to have their mammogram, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Let's put together a group and we'll come to you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so that's a wonderful accomplishment.
But as our treasurer for so many years, that is our most expensive program, but it is the one that is our mission.
Yep.
Absolutely the most, too.
Yep. Well, an accountant, the accountant in me always tries to match up the revenue that you earn and match it up with the costs. We know that in so much of what we do, it's not a really good match because the costs, of having all these coaches, the cost of
mammograms at all, yeah.
of having a navigation department, I guess recently we've had a little funding for that, but over the years, it's just been a basic overhead expense. Right. Okay, so knowing that matching is a challenge, gets us right back to how wonderful it is that there are government programs, the ladies who come in here with insurance, and wonderful philanthropic contributions from organizations and individuals, that for the Rose to keep doing what the Rose does, we need to continue to rely upon those sources.
So when you speak of our navigation department, you're talking about our patient navigation to treatment.
Yes.
And this is a service particularly for our uninsured women who have been diagnosed. And I know you've met our navigators. I think the one thing that always impresses me about them is they find ways to get people into treatment. And you know how hard that is sometimes.
Right.
But they will continue to work and turn over rocks and, just explore everything. Someone said they never have a bad day. Now, I don't see how you can be in the room when another person that you really don't know is hearing for the first time they have breast cancer.
Right.
And from there, they take them and get them into treatment. So
I've seen on occasion how the patient who has been navigated bonds so closely with the navigator, they become friends for life.
yes.
It's just another key to the caring attitude that we care about these people, and we're going to work to get to the solution.
Right.
And so I have a particular fondness for what the navigators do. I know that looking back, if there had been a chance for my mom to defeat what she discovered, she would have needed a navigator. Yeah, we hardly ever, went to a doctor. And so that whole world of what do I do next? Would have been something that she would have needed.
That's so true. I think most any disease you could use a navigator because you're walking into a foreign world. It's healthcare.
Yep.
It's trying to navigate that horrible maze of doctors and facilities, and the navigators many times have had to meet the patients there or carry them there because it is. We just don't realize how inaccessible some things are for people who don't have insurance.
Right.
They just never know about it. So what do you see as the future of the rose? Do you think we're ever going to find a cure for cancer?
That's quite a question. I know that the effort involved in trying to figure it out, is substantial. And I know that, and I always, I get materials from MD Anderson and read the newspapers as to what's going on with cancer efforts. And knowing the accomplishments in medicine that have occurred, in our lifetime.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I would say if I had to answer yes or no, I'd say yes. I don't know how long it's going to take. Okay, but I have to believe that over the course of time, there can be, there can be found a cure, and so it's just another way, in addition to supporting the Rose to treat people who have had the detection, having the ability to support the effort to investigate cures is also very important.
Very important, yes. So, first part of my question, where do you see the Rose going?
Where do I see the Rose going? The Rose needs to be going down the path where it continues to be on having state-of-the-art technology, okay? Breast care excellence is something that will always be on the table and something that we've embraced.
Yes.
Okay, and we have the wonderful technology and the wonderful qualified doctors and technicians to provide the service that's needed. So where's the Rose going? The Rose is going on the path where it needs to continue to identify those technological needs. Okay, we have the partnership now with MRI. That's one small step. Okay, but who knows what else is
coming down
the road. So the Rose needs to go down that path. The Rose, it's not a need, but it's a wonderful initiative to expand the mobile. Okay, okay. Does the Rose need to do that? Well, we're serving so many people with 5 coaches. It's a wonderful mission. It's something to be embraced. But by God, if we can find the funding to expand that, that's what the Rose, you could argue the Rose needs to do that, okay, because there's people.
Well, we're booked for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
The market,
the
market is there.
And we really have to struggle to bring new partners in just because we have so many established partners that really work hard to make those days work.
Yep. Now, the competitive environment is challenging. Okay, and so the Rose, through your podcast, through other methods, needs to let the world know that the Rose is here and what the Rose does. Yes. Because, I'm sure ladies can get wonderful mammography treatment at some of the big hospitals. Okay,
right.
God bless them. Okay, but what they're not getting there that they're getting at the Rose, they're getting the same quality experience, but what they're coming to the Rose, they're giving to others.
Yes.
Okay, and so that message, not only to the general public, but into state and local governments, okay, providers of funding for philanthropic purposes.
Yes.
The Rose needs to always get better in that regard, okay, because we know, frankly, we need to, survive as a nonprofit, organization, and that's part of it, a big part of it.
Yeah, that is a very big part, and it, like you said, it's getting more and more competitive, and we're in an expensive service.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very expensive. It involves direct care. It involves invasive care at times when you're doing biopsies and things like that. So, Bob, what do you hope for your girls?
Well, I have 2 daughters. Laura, who's married with 2 kids. Okay. Erin, who's a high school history teacher, and she's single. Like any dad, okay, I want happiness for them, okay? Wherever their talents take them, I hope that they can use their talents to succeed, have their measure of success in education. Laura's in business with the insurance business, but she's a wonderful mother. Okay, I think her kids are a little bit too active, but she's constantly, she and my son-in-law Richard are constantly, getting them to all their activities.
Right.
But things like happiness, of course, married to that is health. I know that it's got to the point now where I don't need to nag them anymore about annual mammograms. Okay, I think they got the message. That's the good news there.
Yeah.
But I want them to lead full lives. Okay, to feel good about life, to feel about the purpose of life. Okay, and and to have love for. Actually, you try to have love for everybody. Okay, and be very giving. Okay, I know Laura is very active, even though she's has her career. She's very active and even drags the kids along into service activities. Okay, constantly doing something, whether it's the food bank, meals for kids. they're always doing stuff like that. Okay, and so that's the type of approach to life that I hope that they have throughout their years. I hope they're strong enough, to. We know that I mentioned sufferings. I mentioned one of my big life sufferings with my mom, but I know that we all have episodes, incidents of where we suffer. Okay, and so it's certainly my hope that they have the strength and the joy of life to work their way through those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are good wishes, very good wishes. And I know that service mentality had to come from you. Don't argue with me.
Okay.
So thank you so much for being with us today. Good words of wisdom, Bob. You've been with us so long.
Well,
and you know what we need.
Well, Dorothy, you have been an inspiration to me and to all the board members that I've been able to work with over these years. We've had some wonderful board members, and so it's been a joy for me, to be on this board.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk About Your Breasts. This podcast is produced by Speak Podcasting and brought to you by The Rose. Visit therose.org to learn more about our organization. Subscribe to our podcast, share episodes with friends, and join the conversation on social media using hashtag Let's Talk About Your Breasts. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Consider supporting The Rose. Your gift can make the difference to a person in need. And remember, self-care is not selfish, it's essential.